Okay, hi everyone. Salam dari Indonesia, and welcome to this week's conversation. We are here today to explore a truly timely topic: how young Indonesians are actively shaping the future of our nation. I'm Ara Kusuma, Youth Years Manager at Ashoka Indonesia, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Maylyn and Farrell, our newly elected Ashoka Young Changemakers 2025. Woohoo! We have a lot of ground to cover, but before we jump in, a reminder about the format. We have 30 minutes together today, so Maylene, Farrell, and I will chat for the first 15-20 minutes. Then we'll turn to a few of your questions before we wrap up. So when you're curious about something, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We are providing simultaneous translation into Indonesian. You can access this feature by clicking on the interpretation or globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and selecting Indonesian. Bagi Anda yang ingin menggunakan fitur interpretasi, bisa klik logo bola dunia di bawah layar Zoom Anda dan pilih bahasa Indonesia. We'll also have a few polling questions to hear your insights, which will be featured in the discussion. So, without further ado, let's get started. So to kick things off, I think I'd love to hear about the moment that ignited your journey, Farrell and Maylin, because for many of us, there's a point where observations turns into action. So could you each share with us what was the moment that made you realize you could be a change maker and not just someone who observes the world? Maylin, let's start with you.
All right. Thank you for the question. I think my experience it wasn't really a sort of I would say an incredible turning point. It was sort of a decision and a realization that either I'll be stuck in the same problem for the next 3 years of my high school, um, or I'm going to do something. So, for a bit of background context, I first started my Changemaker initiative from a frustration that I'm unable to garner funding from my school to support what I am interested in, because mainly Indonesian schools support STEM-based or natural science-based projects and associations. So, but then I realized that I wasn't the only one struggling, and then some of my friends who were interested, let's say in chess or in dances, arts, and sports, were struggling with the same thing. So, looking back, I was questioning myself. Either I'm gonna be stuck in high school for the next another 3 years with the same problem, trying to garner funds and then sending endless proposals that would ultimately be ignored by my school, or I'm gonna step up and make a change. So I think that was my turning point. I didn't want to spend another 2 years of my high school repeating the same cycle, I would say.
So what did you do about it when you were at the point of like, I'm stuck at this or I wanted to do something? What did you do?
Right. When I realized that I was the only one who could make the change, or people struggling, who has the same struggles with me, are the only one who could make the change, and we couldn't really depend on any institutions or our school or any sports. That's when we started to garner collaboration, right? Because we were all facing the same problems. We eventually got together and break through and sort of analyze what exactly are we trying to solve, right? If we're trying to provide a platform for young people to be able to develop their potential, how are we going to do that? And how are we going to make sure that it is regardless of economic barriers or any other social barriers? Because mind you, one of our main problems beginning especially with me trying to garner funds for debate was economical problems. So I would say we created the discussion, we collaborated, and we sort of figured out, we break through the problems, and we try to see which is exactly the root that we have to solve, and from there we were able to
So guys, when you're struggling about something or you are facing a problem, find other people who are also facing similar problems and then team up with them, collaborate together, and eventually you're actually actively contributing towards a new solution for those problems and helping other people also find those solutions. So Maylin is mainly developing communities for debates and how young people can develop social skills, whereas Farrell here are developing the other end, which is the STEM around science, technology, engineering, and also math, plus arts as well. Farrell, how about you? What was your pivotal moment to start being a change maker?
Okay, so just a little background. Back when I was still in, I'd say primary school, honestly, I wasn't always the most motivated student. Like instead, I was very lazy to study and stuff. And I'd go through the motions to just study, take tests, repeat, and didn't find any meaning in studying. But then one day, um, I remember I remember clearly back in my library back in my primary school, I picked up a really interesting book by Carl Sagan. So the book is called Cosmos. And back then I didn't expect much, but as I read the book, the way Sagan explained the universe, so vast, so full of mysteries, gave me a kind of new purpose that I'd never felt before. So, starting from that point on, I found my new purpose and I wanted to learn more to uncover the unknown. And because of that, starting from that point, science has now taken me so far in life, and I want others to find the similar purpose that I once found when I read the Cosmos book. And but however, uh, a lot of people got hindered to find this purpose because they don't have the resources around them. Um, so yeah, I realized how rare the opportunity that I get was in some areas near me, especially. In my case, it is in Boyolali near my school. Libraries are almost empty, or even worse, there are kids who still struggle to read, and because of that, um, I feel like maybe someone else is just uh, they're just one book away from finding the purpose, the similar purpose that I once found, but they never get the chance. So because of that, I knew I didn't just want to chase the knowledge for myself. I wanted to build bridges for others to access it as well, and that's how I started Panorama in my social project.
Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit more about Panorama and so that everyone in the room can know
Oh
what
yeah.
exactly do you do with STEM?
Basically in Panorama, and I gathered several kids that are uh, most of them are Olympiad kids, and what we do, we mainly share scientific knowledges in the ways that are easily comprehensible, and we make a narrative module to share the knowledge, and that module become the backbone of our teaching sessions. We do teach around the school in our area, and through those activities, we hope that uh, the kids around our area doesn't view science as something that is daunting. They will it'll they'll grow their interest in science after we do the teaching sessions. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing. Everyone has an origin story. It can be from a problem or a struggle or a passion. It can be from an inspiration within us or also outside us, like reading a book or seeing the community around us. Now, let's dive into the impact that you are creating. Both Edus and Panoramind are making tangible differences in education. And when we're directly involved in the action and facing real world problems, that's where profound lessons come from. Can you each share one story of impact from your initiative and what lessons did you learn from it? Perhaps, Farrell, could you begin this time?
Okay. Um. So I think one moment that stayed with me happened during one of the teaching sessions that I had. So it was a school. I taught at a school named SD Negeri Satu Ringin Larik. It's in Boyolali, a school. uh, yeah, where we usually ran our teaching sessions. And back then, I had an astronomy class with them. I taught astronomy, and I was talking about the ISS. So ISS is basically the space station, and there was one student who at first he was barely speaking or participating. He was sat in the back, quiet. But by the end of my teaching session, he was volunteering to explain concepts to his classmates, and even uh, he came to me and said, um, I think after this I want to be an astronaut. I want to go to the ISS. So yeah. And after the session, his teacher told us that he never used to talk this much. Now he's becoming one of the most active students in class, and that's when it clicked in me. That's when it hit me that science isn't just about knowledge. It's basically a gateway to new purposes, to new dreams, to curiosity, and yeah, the lesson I learned is that uh, impact um, is not always. Sometimes impact comes quietly, from the quietest kids that we never expected to come. So yeah, impact sometimes starts quietly. It's not always in the applause or 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 achievements that we gain, but sometimes it's in a raised hand or a spark in someone's eyes that come after we teach them. So yeah.
That's such a wonderful story. And you basically opened a new world to the student, and you
Yeah,
built a
hopefully.
new dream for him as well. Hopefully, hopefully. Um, Maylene, what about you? What story of impact from Edius would you like to share, and what did it teach you?
All right. So one line really stuck with me, what Farah had said before, that impact isn't always loud and obvious and something that has to be big. And I think I have similar impact stories that I can share. I think one that's very personal for me is that there was a student who came in, and again, for background, ADUs, we hold workshops that teach students in several different branches. The one that the student came in was public speaking and debate. So at first, well, because she's Indonesian and English wasn't her first language, it was such a struggle to get sentences to even start to comprehend the emotions for the debate, or the topic for the public speaking. But she pushed through, mainly because she knew that at that time we were the only platform that could help her um, not only speak in English, but beyond that, think and crucially analyze problems, right? Because that's what you do in debate and public speak up. And then eventually, after around 6 or 7 months after joining, um, her outs. Well, yeah. So the story was she was trying to apply for this a scholarship that had a minimum requirement of outs being at 6, and at that time, I'm pretty sure outs was below 6. But after joining us, um, she had an increased score to 7.5, and that was enough for her to gain the scholarship, right? And as of now, she leads an Indonesian like student association in Turkey. And what I'm trying to highlight here is that even though at first the change she made or the change um or a difference she made within isn't really clear, as in, oh, this girl from not being able to get sentences out is now fluent in English. But then what we can see is that she's able to impact other people, especially now in Turkey, to not only give them empowerment and give them tools to study abroad, but also ultimately share the story of not giving up, as how she experienced it in Indonesia. So I think that's also an example of what Farrell said earlier, right? At first, the change doesn't seem very loud and obvious. It's not like she won a Nobel Prize or anything. But then, as time comes and as progress, as time goes by, the progress becomes larger and larger, and you're able to create a sort of ripple effect that also motivates or also empowering leads other students to become change makers of their own. So that would be my impact story.
Wow, that's really powerful on how small changes that happen today can actually lead to so many opportunities for one person and her family, her friends, her communities as well, around her. from that, one skills of English and then debate, and then it leads to so many other things from there. Well, thank you both for those inspiring stories and valuable lessons. Before we delve into our next question about bridging generational gaps, we'd love to hear directly from our audience. We're going to launch a quick poll on your Zoom screens to get your immediate thoughts and perspectives on youth participation. So if you can launch the poll now, great. So the poll is now open. Please take a moment to select your answers. We'll give you about 1 minute to respond. Okay, it looks like most of you have cast your votes. So now let's see the results together. Oh, it looks like majority of us have started an initiative or contributed to an effort to make the world better before the age of 20. Regarding the challenges, it's pretty widespread. And how important do you believe it is for young people to actively participate in shaping the future of their community, country, and world? All of us either voted for extremely important, that it's crucial for progress, and also very important, like young people bring unique perspectives as well to the table. Thank you so much for all your perspectives, fantastic insights. Now, with these perspectives in mind, let's move on to our next questions. And we will also be discussing about this and hear directly this perspective from Farrell and Maylyn as well. Now, thinking, about the broader relationship between generations, I'm curious to hear your perspective. Maylyn, from your experiences working as young change makers and engaging with various stakeholders, what what do you think about your position as a young person bringing change to the world? And what do adults and institutions most often misunderstand about Gen Z?
Um, I think there's a lot of things adults misunderstand, right? But I'll just bring up one thing that I think is very important is that usually Gen Z is stereotyped as not being empathetic, right? We're too bored with things. We have very limited time span because of all the social medias we've been exposed to. We're easily stimulated. We get bored easily, but in the same time, we get bored easily. Um, but then that may be true, but I think it's a result of the world that we're living in. As in, if you think about it, we're growing up in a world full of crisis. Every time you open news, climate change, inequality, a broken education system, and then you have wars and breakout wars in other parts of the world. We feel the urgency and we get overstimulated by the problems. Yet when we're trying to act upon these problems, we are undersupported, right? So we have a lot of problems happening right now, but then when we try to act upon it, we feel undersupported. Now, what do I mean by this is this. I think there are lots of platforms right now that tries to inspire youth change makers, like obviously Ashoka in itself. But a problem remains is that it's not really a platform given to youths, it's just a representation for youths. As in, there are lots of institutions that invites us as speakers or invite us as change, but they label us only as future leaders, right? We're not present leaders, we're future leaders. So in a sense, they're only recognizing us 20 years after we build that initiative because we're for the future and not we're not making we're making change for the future um, and not right now. So I think that's the problem. It's even when we get a representation, it's usually only for an act of tokenism, right? Institutions bring us forward so that there's representation from the youth. They're not really trying to listen to what we say and why we say it. So I think it's very important that when we give Gen Z or young change makers the platform or the platform to speak up, we truly mean it and we truly empathize with the problems that they bring forward, not just as a way to represent the youth, not just as a way to check off in the checkbox that hey, we have a youth speaker and so on. That would be all for
That's a very candid and important point, Maylene. Thank you for sharing. And it is also important to not only understanding what young people are saying, but also why, and working with them, not only working for them or like having them as part of like representations, purpose only. So, Farrell, what's your take on this? What are the common misunderstandings, and how can we foster a better collaborations and understanding?
Uh, I think I have a similar view with Maylin. So yeah, just continuing from Maylin, I think the main reason why adults or like institutions that had already established, they rarely give us a spot to take the leadership roles. I think it's because many adults right now, they misunderstand the form of what leadership look like for us, for Gen Zs, right? So they often expect it to come in the shape of let's say formal titles, like, or long-term experience, or yeah, let's say, it's simply put, it's the traditional pathways. But for many of us, uh, doing these things, doing the change making stuff, it doesn't begin with those fancy roles, with those fancy ways, but it simply starts with, let's say, Google Docs, or just as simple as through group chats, or like Instagram posts, right? And yeah, we share it among our friends who are tired of waiting for permission to do something. So I think that's the main thing that hinders us right now: bureaucracy and those old, old fashioned ways of doing the leadership. So let's say, take Panorama for example. So it started with a simple realization of mine that science was being taught in a way that made students memorize only. And I didn't wait until I had a degree or a big organization behind me. I gathered what I had, and yeah, and I made a group, and then yeah, we make it happen. And that's something many institutions don't fully grasp. They see our efforts, and sometimes dismiss them as only youthful enthusiasm, right? Rather than a real systemic work. But the truth is, we're not just testing ideas. We actually we're reimagining the way problems can be solved. So we don't like to wait for the ideal conditions, but we adapt through the process. So yeah, we take advantage of what we currently have, and we grow up with it. And I think to solve that problem, to bridge the gap, I think, yeah, for the older generations and institutions, they need to shift uh from being the gatekeepers to somehow like partners, like, instead of asking, are they ready, or the youngsters ready, they could instead ask, how can we assist them, how can we support what they're already building, because we're not waiting to be empowered. We're already doing the work, and what we need is success and a little more trust. I think that's it. That's all I can give.
What we need is access and a little bit more trust. That's such a powerful message. Thanks for sharing, Farrell. And I think it's also really important what you mentioned about giving ourselves permission to contribute, to playing an active role in the community, and also giving others permission to lead as well. Many of the participants mentioned that they're also facing a lack of community and support or mentorship to start implementing an idea for change. Also, there is a fear of failure on criticism. There's also not knowing where to start, time constraints, as well as lack of financial resources. And I think it can start with, what you both have mentioned earlier about giving permissions, trying to find others to collaborate together, and start with what we can do, no matter how small it is, towards something that we're really passionate about or we're struggling to face right now. You've both highlighted crucial aspects of youth engagement and also the challenges you've overcome. Now let's head to the future. Imagine a scenario where you have the power to shape policy and support systems. If you were given the power to change one thing, just one thing, in how Indonesia supports its young change makers, what would you prioritize and why? Farrell, let's start with your vision.
Okay. So I think what matters the most is, as I have said a couple of times before, it's access. It's access to resources, right? So what I will perhaps do is to decentralize access to cities beyond the capital cities like Jakarta, or like the big cities, Semarang and stuff. So we all know, as I have observed before through Panorama, talent is everywhere, right? Ideas are everywhere. Many young Indonesians, in rural areas as well, they have brilliant ideas, they have brilliant stories, but they lack the networks, they lack the stable internet to turn their visions into action, right? So that's why I believe that decentralizing opportunity will be the best way to maximize their potential. So let's say we have to make make platforms where young people from all corners of Indonesia can connect with what experts, mentors, so that they can um access learning tools, and eventually they can share their initiatives, not just the ones who are already in the big cities, not just the ones who are already able to speak English fluently or have access to like good schools. So yeah, I think everyone deserves the same opportunities. That's why decentralizing opportunities, decentralizing resources will be the main thing that I will do, you know. And I hope we all have the collective visions in this, and we can manifest it in the future, in the near future, hopefully.
Hopefully. And we're hopeful to have both of you starting to do that already. As someone who comes from a small town, I can totally relate with your vision and how we should decentralize the access to resources and also opportunities for young people. Maylin, if you could choose one thing to change in how Indonesia supports its young change makers, what would it be and why?
Um, Thank you for the question. I've been looking forward to answer this one. So after noting what Farrell said, I underlined two things in my notes, right? First of all, it's accessibility to platforms, and then second of all, school. Why? Because is very close to what I'm trying to propose. So my initiative, EDUs, starts when we notice um, that the education system in Indonesia is not what it's meant to be, right? So if there's one thing I would like to change, it would be transforming Indonesia's education system, especially in schools. Now, what does this mean? Because if we look back to the word education, it actually comes from a Latin word "eduus," which is actually the name of my organization, right? Which means to bring out something latent and potential, right? But as we see right now, not only in Indonesia, I believe it's also a problem globally, is that education has become, or school in itself has become, a lot more into drilling facts, chasing grades, preparing for exams, like what Farrell said, right? It's theories. You don't really find the joy in science. And then most importantly, not all talents or potentials of students are fully supported by schools. What do I mean by that? In my case, my school only provide funds for STEM based or for national science based competitions, courses, and things like that. So sports and arts are out of the picture, right? We are able to change the education system so that it truly means a platform where students can express and also bring out their full potential, then I believe we're going to create more young change makers, right? Why is that so? Because when you give students the room, again, to explore, to develop what they want, they stop treating school as just surviving or just passing with a diploma. They start taking it seriously, and that's where you start seeing change, because that's when they have the freedom to explore their interests and problems around them, but also gain the support and sort of social net from schools to be able to make the change, right? So essentially, what I'm saying is, if we're able to give young people, especially in schools, the platform to bring out their full potential, we're able to see more young change makers in the future.
Yeah, sadly, many of us go to school, but sometimes we don't really learn and also or like get the true, purpose of education. So opening that up for more people to find their purpose of learning, find their purpose of education, and really shifting the mindset on how people see the essence of education itself will be greatly appreciated for how we can support more young people out there to find their potentials and optimize them for the good of all. Well, that feels like a great place to stop for today. Thank you so much, Farrell and Maylyn, for sharing your wonderful insights. And as we conclude this truly inspiring conversation, I'm also reminded of a powerful sentiment that rings especially true today. It's often said and attributed to our very own founding father, Bung Karno or Soekarno. Berikan aku 10 pemuda, niscaya akan kuguncangkan dunia. Or give me 10 young people and I will undoubtedly shake the world. We have two right here. Let's find eight more. And Maylin and Farrell, you both and indeed all young Indonesians like you are living proof of this profound truth. You are not just the future. You are the vibrant, innovative, and determined force shaking the world today, building a stronger and also brighter Indonesia. Thank you once again for sharing your incredible insights and inspiring us all. And to everyone who joined, thank you for your participation, your perspectives, and also your questions. And do look out for an email with a link to our conversation today. Enjoy your evenings, days, mornings, wherever you are, and see you next week. Bye.